Hello! Again, my name's Derek Bailey. I've been a wood turner now for over 40 years and taught for 8 of them, albeit mostly beginners. If you've been following my video, my previous video, part 1, was the design of an eccentric jig, which eliminated the vibration which often comes with eccentric turning, especially on small lathes. I designed an eccentric chuck on a previous video to that, which was okay for doing small pendants, etc., but you're to use double-sided tape, or certainly tape with super glue, which was a bit of a faff, and I didn't like going through all the tape and everything else, worrying about some of the tape residue finishing up on the finished article or on the finish that I'd put on the pendants, and you couldn't always guarantee it. And once you've got sticky residue on a finish of wood, it's hard to get off without having to refinish it all. So I hadn't come across a double-sided tape which I could trust 100% in not leaving residue on pendants. So I made up this jig, which is designed purely for pendants. My previous one, the eccentric chuck, you could use it for making goblets and eccentric spindles, albeit a little tricky. I haven't fully developed that yet, but it's done a good job so far. Well, in this video I'm testing out the arrangement that I've made with the jig and the saddle which slides in the jig, which creates the eccentricities, and I've tested it out with some success and some failures, which will become apparent in the video that follows. Anyway, enough waffling, let's get on. In order to utilise the eccentric jig in manufacturing the pendant from start to finish, I've incorporated a template with a screw in the centre as a point where I can locate the square blank of the pendant. It's simply a matter of finding the centre of the square blank and just putting a small dent in it so that it's easier to locate the dent onto the pin of the template. The dent hasn't to be too deep, but certainly deep enough that it can be removed later when I finish turn the pendant. I'll now place, I think I'll call it the saddle, into the centre of the eccentric jig, ready for turning the square blank into a disc. As in my previous video, whenever I'm testing anything new that I've made, I like to stand away from the firing line in case anything goes wrong or I've made a stupid mistake. I'm now jamming the pendant blank into the pin on the template that's in the saddle. It's not the ideal way to turn the square blank into a disc, but if I'm careful and just watch what I'm doing, it's fine. I don't think I was careful enough in sanding the outside diameter of the pendant blank. It made it more difficult, I think, for me to hold it in the saddle later. That'll become apparent as you watch the video. Having to adjust the tightness of the saddle against the pendant, I need to find a faster way of tightening up the nuts. The thickness of the blank is around 10mm, which is ample thickness. I'm going to cut both sides to create a grid effect. Here it's a case of just finishing off the surface, making it flat to replay because I'll be reversing it in the saddle. But just in case the saddle doesn't work properly, I'll be able to use double-sided tape, although it defeats the object of making a saddle. But we'll see how we go on. Now it's just a case of finishing off the surface with abrasives up to about 180. I usually go grit, and then I revert to Yorkshire grit standard and Yorkshire grit fine, and then finish off with a coat of sanding sealer and 3 coats of melamine. In order to make evenly spaced grooves, I've introduced a scale on a clamp that rests against the banjo of the tool post, and therefore I can position the banjo in divided increments according to the scale. Makes it a lot easier to size and thicknesses, because it can show up if you don't get your thicknesses in a certain consistency or a graduated distance. It's visually more appealing than just random making grooves everywhere. The computer printout scale that I made in an illustration program on the computer, I've stuck on there, and it's zeroed so that I can move the saddle either side of 0, which gives a different effect with these semicircular grooves that are cut. And they're opposing. This gives an added facility which may or may not prove to be attractive. I've adjusted the eccentricity value, and I'm just testing to see that the grooves won't interfere with each other too much, and that the space between my newly adjusted grooves is approximately the safe distance the same distance between each screws I'd previously cut. As you can see, I'm now moving the saddle to the right of the zero. Just a random figure really. I'm just testing the facility. We'll just see how it looks. Is it me, or does that look like an Egyptian hieroglyph for an eye? I'm probably a bit fixated on hieroglyphics, but it looks a bit Egyptian to me. Because I've concentrated on the saddle and its usability, I didn't really take much notice on how deep I made the grooves. Ideally I should have gone about 5mm deep into a 10mm thick blank, but we'll see how we go on. For obvious reasons you don't go right through. The main object of this procedure is to make the depths just slightly overlap by about 0.5mm, not too much, or it'll weaken the pendant. But the idea is for the two opposing grooves on either side of the pendant to interfere with one another and create a grid pattern that can be quite attractive. I've decided to create a convex curve on the opposing side of the pendant. It gives two options then to display, whether it's flat surface or a more tactile curved surface. I hope it works out. I've noticed with spalted beech, which is what this pendant is made from, it doesn't take a good finish very well because it's a punky grain, and the actual fungusaur has attacked the wood and made it punky. It absorbs treatment very quickly and doesn't cause a glossy shine, and you have to put a lot more coats on if you want to get a high gloss. Here I'm just trying to locate the hole where the thong or the cord is going to go. Sometimes it doesn't go where you think, and it's hard to visualize it until you actually put something against the wood to see if you can make a constant position as it rotates. I'm just creating a countersink on the hole to make it a bit more attractive and make it conducive with the rest of the grooves that I'm going to put in. As I'm cutting with this small parting tool, I can feel the difference in cut as I go through and start to hit the grooves on the other side of the pendant. Uh-oh! There we have it. The pendant has suddenly disintegrated and I'm not sure why. I'll have to have a look and a think exactly what's gone wrong. Well, I've had a think and maybe it's one of the 6 causes that I suspect it is. I need to do another one. Off camera I've just speeded up the situation. I've made the grooves. There's no point in going through showing you how I made the grooves again. I just want to get one side done and flip it over and see what I can do on the next side, and let's hope it doesn't happen again. Here I'm just sanding in between the grooves. I like to put a small chamfer or radius on the edges. It gives it a more warm and tactile feel to it rather than just very sharp edges. The counterbalance in the jig on the slideways is working a treat. Takes away that apprehension you get when you get vibration, especially on a small lathe like this. And I can always rank the speed up a little bit more as well. Off camera I've just taken a little bit more wood off the recesses at either side of the clamp, the saddle where the bolts go. This allows me to get a socket, a small socket for the nuts instead of using a spanner. It speeds things up a lot. On my engineering lathe I made a metal tool post just to fit on the centre height. You don't really need to have it that way, you can just get a standard round bar that'll fit in the tool post and put a groove in it. I used a Lidl or a Parkside small mini angle grinder. It works a treat really. The battery doesn't last as long as you would like, but it does the job, and it created a nice little slot for me to put my parting tool into. Well, here we go. I'll create the second face. I'll put a convex surface on like I did on the failure before, and get it polished up, etc., ready for some grooves. I had to be careful here. Before I put the grooves in, I've rotated the pendant within the saddle, just in case, because I did consider putting the saddle past the zero and the other side of the jig. But if I did that, it would probably line up with the holes, with the grooves that I've put in the first side, and I'd go right through. The whole idea, the grooves have to interact with one another. If I put the grooves in exactly the same place as the first face, I'd have a load of flying annuluses and discs flying all over the place. So I have to be very careful and make sure that the grooves go in the opposite direction to the flip side of the pendant. I have to make sure that the grooves I'm putting in don't interfere with the hole for the cord. It'll look a bit odd. So I've put the grooves either side of the hole and space them evenly distributed after that. Well, I must admit to being a little bit nervous about this, but I put the speed up, and I'm going to use a very, very slow feed of the tool into the wood, and listen out for any strange noises or pull on the tool as it goes down. I'm slightly raising the handle up as well, to avoid any problems which could happen if the handle was too low of the parting tool. Oh, that's a shame. I've just noticed here the actual grain feature of the wood makes it look like a crack, which is a shame, but I'm hoping the pendant will be attractive enough. Well, I'm gaining a bit more confidence now that the saddle is holding the pendant well enough, and I don't feel the same pulling thinking back to the disastrous pendant I did before. It doesn't pull the edge of the tool the same, so let's hope I can keep going. The beauty of this little tool post, which is why I used it instead of the normal tool rest, is because I can put the parting tool in the slot, it helps my essential tremors no end. I'd be quite nervous about using an ordinary tool post and try to reposition the parting tool into the grooves I've previously cut. Great stuff. Now it's just a case of using a sharp craft knife just to clear out the holes that have been created. Thanks for watching.